Mayor Gerald Alberts joins us here today on Primetime Local News. Mr. Mayor, Monday, the GPC meeting looked at many topics, including the 3-month financial period on where the city is at right now. What were your general thoughts on those financial numbers that were presented on Monday?
Well, it was fairly broad ranging from the budget numbers because a budget is set basically, it starts the process last May is where some of our city staff started the budgeting process for this budget that we're currently in. So when we approved it in principle in December, said we may be subject to review and we'll wait and see how things go. So some of our construction projects have come in relatively below budget, which is terrific. Other things such as vehicles, you'll notice one of the vehicles purchased is above budget because that's where the market's gone. And we're hearing this in construction industry, materials especially, those prices are going up. So a budget is a really tough thing and from the perspective to stay right on top of it. But at the same token, I think that when the city comes forward in May and gives us a much better perspective, the administration brings that forward to council when we set the mill rate for this year to determine what the tax rate will be. That will be the telltale. And we're hoping that we can stay within budget and continue to deliver the projects. But again, we have to be realistic. If a project comes back after it's tendered for way more than it's budgeted, we have to may say, no, it can't move forward. So there's still a lot of pieces to this puzzle yet to go forward, especially in 2021.
You mentioned projects, and as we get into these numbers right now, there are, of course, 104 projects in the works right now, including the new fire hall, which broke ground earlier this week. But there are a few projects on hold, mainly because of declined funding. So what's the plan to get a lot of those projects that are on hold back on track?
Both of those are stormwater projects, and they are significant, $4 million in total value. So we're going to have to take a hard look at that, and we'll leave that to administration to bring forward and see what we can actually do and accomplish, because it's either going to have to come out of reserves in most cases for those kind of projects, those capital projects. And I want to be careful about spending reserves. Projects are both needed, and we were hoping they would be funded through the process at the federal provincial grant programs, but they weren't. So once the challenge we have also is once we spend taxpayers' money, which being reserves or actual tax dollars this year, we don't get to go back to the government and ask for that grant funding. They don't reciprocate on past dollars spent, I'm afraid. And that's a challenge. So that we'll have to take a look and see if we have the money available. Can we complete some of the work that is critical yet not commit to the whole project? So there's many pieces that are going to have to be looked at before we move forward with those two projects and see what administration is seeing and able to accomplish. Because if we can do some engineering work, as an example, as we usually do with roads, without the bulk of the construction dollars being committed, then maybe that's something we can look at doing this year, taking that out of reserve so that we can show the government that we are serious and we want to move forward with this project and why it's an eligible project. It's been shown that already, but a bigger commitment by the city always seems, as what we hear, are you shovel ready? We will be shovel ready potentially if that's what council decides. So there's many pieces to this puzzle again that we'll have to see how it plays forward in the next little while.
Now, if, for instance, there is a repeat of last year where a lot of businesses or operations had to shut down because of COVID, is the city financially able to supplement those losses with COVID variants now starting to emerge more in the country?
I think that we're at a different point. We're a year later into COVID. And one of the challenges that we're seeing is there's no question variants are present, but I also have seen the community, and namely the business community, shift their business model, and from that perspective and how things are delivered. And I'm hoping, as I'm sure many people in the city are, is that we've reached the amount of controls and regulations that are in place, and it will get better. We are always concerned about the financial well-being of the community, and I think that is a concern that's on our mind. There is some money left from the federal two provincial governments that gave us COVID money last year that's sitting in reserve should it be required. But again, I think we can say that we've followed a fairly fiscal prudent management style, and I think that will continue. So before we start dipping into that, as they say, I would want to be sure that it's the absolute requirement. And we've looked at what other items that might have to be looked at in the budget before that. And I think administration is aware of that very clearly, that we don't want to be outspending ourselves in this time, even though we want to deliver on projects. We want to see completions, and we will see those projects through completion. Doesn't mean we have to adjust the capital budget. That will be looked at accordingly as we move forward in May, and hopefully have a much better idea. It's not far away, but it's in the same token, it is something that we'll continue to monitor and go from there. You know, the challenge that you've alluded to, none of us have an exact idea. I could sit down with, I'm sure, a half dozen contractors in the city and say, where do you think this is going to end with lumber, as an example? I don't think anybody can give me an idea. I've talked to others about sheet metal, furnaces, electrical supplies. It's across the board, siding on homes and businesses. So there's a lot of pieces at play here that are well out of our control, but at the same token, at the end of the day, we have to determine what the dollars actually get spent on, and we'll look at that very carefully and challenge administration to make sure that if we can put something off without affecting the service levels, the safety, the reliability of the systems of the city, we will definitely be looking at that.
Mayor Gel Albers, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.